I don't think I've ever really mentioned this before, but my favorite genre of video game is RPGs, or more specifically, JRPGs in specific. So I've played a lot over the years, and some I played were honestly pretty obscure and never got a sequel despite believing that they were pretty high quality. So I wanted to make a video talking about them in hopes of getting the word out. Hey y'all, it's Crimson once more, and without further ado, let's get started. But don't forget to like and subscribe. That's out of the way? Alright, good, let's get started then. Starting out this list is easily one of the most visually striking games I've ever played, and that game is called Child of Light. Child of Light is a turn-based RPG that designs itself with an incredibly charming storybook feel that'll bring such a warmth to your chest whenever you play it. Alongside this is the characters having a rhyming style of talking that'll just bring you back to the days where you were just a wee child reading from books that made you smile about princes and princesses and all the other random nonsense that sounded like they were high off shrooms when they were making. Of course, the game wouldn't be half as good without its combat, of course. An art style doesn't just make the game. And trust me, this combat is just as fantastic as its art style. My personal favorite aspect of it is the fact that you can swap out your party members mid-battle. A concept that may seem like it's nothing special, but really is something that I believe every turn-based RPG should have. It's a game that shows that something like a unique art style can stand above graphic fidelity if given the chance it truly deserves. So Dragon Ball games don't usually dive into the RPG formula, but when they do, they are genuinely some of the most interesting experiences for the franchise. And the one that I believe did this the best of them all was Dragon Ball Fusions for the 3DS. What makes this one different from Attack of the Saiyans or something like Dragon Ball Z Kakarot was how instead of using anything from the source material, Fusions tells its own original story, using your own created character OC and his best friend the Saiyan Pinnage, as they use the Dragon Balls to create the ultimate tournament so they can finally settle their rivalry, which really seems insane and a lot more dangerous than I think they planned it out for, but whatever, it's a Dragon Ball story, go with it. And from then on out, you're introduced to a wild and wacky adventure that is as fun as it is absolutely insane. The best aspect of this game is the fusion mechanic in it, as this game really dives into the fusion part of the series, with the idea of letting your character fuse with every character you can get your hands on in the game, with the new EX fusion mechanic to make it work. Oh, and it doesn't end with only your character. The fusion possibilities for the other characters are crazy. If you want to fuse characters like Tiencha, Vegito, and Gogeta, go right ahead. But don't you think it would be funner to fuse Cell and Frieza? Or Mr. Satan and Majin Buu? Or even Kid Goku and fucking Zamasu? Well, you can with this game, buddy boys. It really is a massive must-play for not only fans of Dragon Ball, but for just fans of RPGs in general. When you look back on the PS3 and Xbox 360 era of games, you kind of realize that a lot of the RPGs on them were kind of overlooked in favor of, well, shooters becoming a lot more popular in that time. And Eternal Sonata is an absolute overlooked gem of a JRPG. From the lovable and funny characters, to its charming graphical style, to the absolutely beautiful music. But what stands out more than anything about this game, in my personal opinion, was its battle system. You see, instead of something like turn-based combat or an action RPG, Eternal Sonata used a unique style of mixing those two together, where instead of just standing in place for the turn-based combat, or moving around freely for action-based combat, you're given 5 seconds to just go nuts and do whatever. From attacking, to healing, to defending. It's such an interesting and well done concept for combat that I honestly wished more JRPGs would try out. If you're yearning for a fantastic RPG with even better music, then Eternal Sonata is most certainly for you. Hell, this whole list started as an idea to just gush about how good this game in Child of Light was. But then I started to think about the other one-off games and decided to make it into a whole list. Speaking of which, here's the next one. Alright, so the last few games have been around from like 360 era backwards. So I decided I wanted to go with a game that was a bit more on the recent side. and that game is Shining Resonance. Shining Resonance is a game with an actually pretty interesting history in the fact that the original version never really came over to the West. You see, we got instead was an expanded version called Shining Resonance Reframe that was released on the PS4, Switch, and Xbox or PC. It gave you a few new party members, a couple new cutscenes, and even a new romance option to indulge in. Yes, there's dating in this game. Deal with it, nerd. But that's not what got it a spot. Those certainly helped, but it's not really what got a spot. Shining Resonance earns a spot on this list due to its simple but fun combat, charming art style, and well-written characters and dialogue. While some parts aren't perfect, the game is certainly worth checking out if you're in need of a fun and pretty easy to get your hands on RPG. Plus, you can turn into a dragon to absolutely wreck your enemies, and when is that not awesome? This game, without a doubt, has probably the single strangest name on this entire list, and might just also be the most unknown one on this list as well. Although there is a good chance you may have just heard about this game in passing from like a list of just the weirdest video game names ever. And sadly, that seems to be the only thing that people remember from this game, is its weird name, which is a damn shame considering how enjoyable this game was. You see, instead of other RPGs making you like a hero of legend, or some former soldier or something like that, you instead play as a flute player. Yep, you're just a flute player who gets dragged into the conflict due to being the spitting image of the enemy's leader. And from there, it spirals into a crazy adventure of simple but fun combat and several goofy and lovable characters, alongside a very interesting story about chains binding the world. Hell, it's one of the only JRPGs I know where you get a fucking bear as your teammate. Not a bear man, a literal bear as your teammates. It also has a pretty fun mechanic where you can use the MC's flutes, aka his name is Capel, by the way. I don't know why I didn't call him Capel, but there you go, his name's Capel. You can use his flute to find hidden areas and items during the gameplay segments. If you want to give it a try, it should still be on Game Pass, so go give it a play if you're interested. I guarantee you it won't feel like a waste of your time. Oh hell yeah, we're getting back to the real obscure shit for this pick. To be honest, I almost went with something else for this spot, but I decided to talk about this one because my Mega Man love just appeared when I remembered this game. The Mega Man franchise is a series I hold very close to my heart. It's one of my favorite genres and franchises of all time. So, when I learned that it had a turn-based RPG made for its series, I had to check it out. And goddamn, it is such a damn shame this game didn't catch on, because it is so much fun. The game gives you control of well-known characters like X-Zero and Axel, but also lets you use newly introduced characters to the game, like Spider and Massimo. I think that's how you pronounce his name? I don't know. It also utilizes a fun addition to its turn-based combat by adding button presses to complete special attacks and increase damage, along with equipping the newly introduced Force Medals to add special abilities to the Maverick Hunters. I honestly really wish this game had gotten a lot more love than it did. If it was given another chance, I think a turn-based Mega Man franchise could work really well, but Capcom doesn't seem to really want to bring it back, so tough shit for me. Then again, this came out after X6 and X7, so that might be why many people and Capcom kind of want to just wash their hands of the franchise at this point. I mean, have you played those games? Dear God, they're terrible. Well, I mean, I just couldn't make this list without Legend of Dragoon. I mean, come on. It's Legend of Dragoon. It's the sole PS1 game JRPG fans have been asking for years for a remake, which Bluepoint is supposedly making, but that's a story for another time. And after getting to try it myself, I can see why Legend of Dragoon deserves one. The game is absolutely incredible. It boasts some really incredible graphics and cinematics for a PS1 game. Alongside the incredible graphics and cinematics was a very fun gameplay system, being one of the first ever JRPGs to rely on the concept of QuickTime events to increase the attack damage in battle, something that Paper Mario would later go on to, in my personal opinion, perfect. Adding on to this combat system was the Dragoon skills, which allowed you access to Dragoon skills and magic. I don't know why I said Dragoon, probably could have just gone with Dragon skills and magic, but Dragoon's more fun to say, so ha! Granted, you have skill points, of course. The game showcases an immense amount of potential for a deeper series that would be amazing to explore, which I can only hope can come to fruition if Bluepoint finally gives us that remake. Also, a fun little thing I learned about this while working on this video, there was apparently a sequel planned for Legend of Dragoon that was planned to be created but never did and got cancelled, sadly. I haven't really done a super huge amount of research into it, but I probably will at some point. But enough about that. Let's move to the next one. You know, I felt like it just kind of fits to have this particular Pokemon game added to this list, considering just how much people have clamored for a sequel to be made of it. Honestly, I had never actually played Pokemon Conquest until just recently because I wanted to see if it deserved to go on the list or not. And boy, oh boy, does it. This game deserves every single bit of praise it gets. Okay, so first off, you are not in any sort of modern time. Usually, Pokemon games take place in a modern time, but Conquest just takes place in a region similar to feudal Japan, which is already such a cool idea. And battles aren't even turn-based in this spin-off game. Instead, they employ a tactical style of gameplay similar to something like Fire Emblem, or as, well, I think we can all agree, Final Fantasy Tactics. And they pull it off incredibly well. The characters in story are also incredibly engaging, which is, no surprise for a Pokemon spin-off. Those seem to have the best characters in the games. You will find yourself falling in love with this unique setting with every single level that you play through, because sure know I did. I'm gonna bet $10 you will as well. I know it sounds like a lot of dick sucking that I'm doing, but I just can't help it. This game is fantastic. It's such a damn shame they chose not to continue onwards with this series. Maybe one day though, Game Freak. Maybe one day. When Nintendo started creating the Mario and Luigi games, and, well, to an extent the first 3 Paper Mario games, it's kind of fascinating to think back and realize that the concept of those series started with a turn-based RPG on the Super Nintendo, with Mario RPG Legend of the 7 Stars. It was a game developed by Square Enix back when they went by Squaresoft instead. The good old days, before NFTs and Square dunking their own reputation into the ball pit, so it can get pink eye and everyone can laugh at it. But enough about that. It was basically their last game before parting with Nintendo, and that game did not disappoint at all. While it may seem like a normal turn-based RPG at first glance, this game had a lot in it that helped carve the foundation of the other Mario RPGs that were brought into the world. The button pressing at certain points to gain more damage for normal and special attacks for one, that came from 7 Stars. Original characters and some goofy fun humor also came from 7 Stars. Teaming up with the Bowser himself, the King of Awesome. You know what I'm going to say, right? It came from 7 Stars. This game was, and still is, one of the best Mario games ever made. It is honestly saddening that most people have probably never played this game. And while the Mario and Luigi series and the original Paper Mario trilogy did fill that void of getting no 7-star sequel, hell, funnily enough, Paper Mario was meant to be a sequel until it became its own thing, it would still be absolutely fantastic to get a sequel to this game, especially since we don't have many Mario RPGs outside of Rabbids, and it would be nice to get the turn-based games back. So, Miitopia. It's a pretty weird game. It's an RPG that's pretty much on the rails throughout most of the game. Characters don't really have a lot to their personalities, and it's not really the most challenging thing around. So why am I recommending it to you? Simple. It is just so weird and so out there that playing it to see for yourself is just worth it alone. It's an RPG where, instead of having set characters, a set villain, and set town, everything is decided entirely by you, and you alone. And it is really rare to get RPGs that do that. From the party members, to the job classes, to even the people who live in the towns themselves, and even the villain are chosen by you. Barely any RPGs offer this amount of freedom with their story and characters. You can literally make a team where Charlie Brown teams up with Shaggy and Jesus to help Princess Goro Majima to battle the Dark Lord NFT monkey. If that doesn't sound like a reason to at least check it out, I am so disappointed in you. JK, I love you all. Honestly, I wished we had gotten a Miitopia 2 on the Switch instead of a port of Miitopia. It would have been really cool to see an expanded world with more Miis. Maybe more job classes, more ways of combat. Maybe someday Miitopia 2 will grace us with its presence. Until then, we still got this weird and super charming Switch port to play. And that is all for this list. Thank you all so much for watching. And if you like this, remember to like and sub. We're trying to hit 150 before the year is up. And I personally think we can do it. Are there any RPGs or JRPGs that I missed when I added them to this list? If so, let me know in the comments. I'd like to hear your opinions. With that out of the way, have a lovely day, everybody.